The CPR feature is activated by the instructor when running a cardiac arrest scenario. You can select an appropriate rhythm from the ECG library. For example, ventricular fibrillation, asystole, or pulseless ventricular tachycardia to begin. After selecting the rhythm, this example uses asystole, press the Update Monitor button to initiate cardiac arrest. The ECG, blood pressure, and oxygen saturations curves will flatline. The student should now begin chest compressions, at which point the instructor presses the CPR button. The artifact on the ECG will match the rate of chest compressions. On the invasive waveform of blood pressure, good quality chest compressions will result in a rise in blood pressure and perfusion to the saturation probe for oxygen. If the chest compressions are of poor quality, the instructor can indicate it is too slow, too fast, too shallow, or too deep. The quality of chest compressions is reflected appropriately on the student monitor. You can pause CPR to allow the student to conduct a pulse check. Chest compressions have stopped, so the true rhythm of the patient's own cardiac activity is revealed. At this stage, you must choose to end the cardiac arrest successfully by pressing the Return of Spontaneous Circulation button. The instructor is then prompted to select an appropriate ECG. The patient's current cardiac rhythm isn't compatible with ROSC, so some ECGs will be unavailable to choose. Select an ECG that is available, followed by the Stop CPR and Activate Next ECG button. In the example of the intubated patient, capnography is active. Instead of changing the rhythm to a mandatory cardiac arrest, you can activate a pulseless electrical activity cardiac arrest. Pressing the PEA button activates the cardiac arrest rules. Invasive blood pressure and perfusion to the oxygen saturation probe are removed. The carbon dioxide level rapidly declines to zero over a few breath cycles. The student should begin performing CPR, prompting the instructor to press the CPR button to decide on the quality of the CPR. Blood pressure, oxygen tracings, and carbon dioxide levels will respond positively if the CPR is of good quality. If CPR is of poor quality, for example too deep or too slow, the end tidal CO2 will rapidly decline. The instructor can accurately match the rate of CPR being performed by the student. Simply tap the hand icon within the CPR feature of chest compressions being performed. This will automatically change the rate of the ECG artifact on the student monitor. For example, chest compressions are too fast, which is reflected on the student monitor. Feedback is then given to the student to improve their CPR skills. If chest compressions are appropriate, the end tidal is at a modest value. But if the patient suddenly gets a return of spontaneous cardiac activity during CPR, you can press the Return of Spontaneous Circulation button, causing a sudden rise in the end tidal CO2 to represent intrinsic cardiac contractions rather than external cardiac massage. The student should stop CPR to conduct rhythm checks. The instructor can pause CPR during the checks or stop CPR if the rhythm is compatible with spontaneous circulation.